There are moments in life when silence feels safer than truth. Growing up, the world seemed to whisper constantly, be good, behave, smile, don't upset anyone, don't be too loud, don't be too quiet, don't take up too much space, but also don't disappear. It was as if every step had to be measured by the invisible expectations of others. The hidden character of this story was not a hero in the traditional sense, no name, no label, just an ordinary soul trying to fit into a mold that kept changing. The story begins in the quiet corners of childhood, where authenticity first began to crack under the weight of conformity. In those early years, there was a natural spark, curiosity, laughter, the urge to ask questions that adults sometimes dismissed. But little by little, the spark was dimmed. Each time honesty slipped out in its raw form, it was met with frowns or lectures, don't say that. People will think badly of you. Each time vulnerability surfaced, it was smoothed over, be strong. Don't cry. You'll embarrass yourself. Every scolding carved an invisible wall around the heart, a reminder that the world loved masks more than the face underneath. As childhood grew into adolescence, the pressure only deepened. Friends carried their own masks, some wearing confidence as armor, others drowning in silence, but all pretending in some way. The hidden character learned to perform too, smiling when laughter felt heavy, nodding in agreement when the soul screamed no, following trends just to avoid standing alone. Somewhere inside, a voice whispered, "This isn't me. This isn't who I am." But that voice was quickly drowned out by fear, the fear of rejection, of ridicule, of being left behind. School became a stage, and every hallway a runway of comparison. The clothes you wore mattered, the way you spoke mattered, even the things you liked or disliked seemed to require approval. Dreams were carefully folded and tucked away if they didn't align with what others considered acceptable. If the hidden character wanted to write, someone would say, "That's not practical. Be realistic." If there was a desire to explore, someone else would remind, "Don't waste time. Follow the safe path." Slowly, the real self shrank, replaced by a version crafted to please everyone else. But pretending has a cost. Inside, the unspoken weight grew heavier. Nights were the hardest, when the performance ended, and silence pressed in. Lying awake, questions echoed in the dark, why can't I just be me? Why do I have to hide? Why am I apologizing for existing the way I am? There was no answer, only the gnawing ache of feeling unseen. Adulthood arrived not with freedom, but with even more expectations. Society had its checklist: career, respectability, relationships, success defined by numbers and appearances. The hidden character followed the script faithfully, believing that ticking each box would finally bring acceptance. Yet each achievement felt hollow, like a costume worn too long. Praise came, but it never sank into the soul, because it wasn't for the real person inside, it was for the mask. Everywhere, people seemed to live double lives, projecting happiness while hiding pain. It became normal to apologize before speaking truth: "Sorry, but this is how I feel," or "I know it sounds silly, but..." Apologies became the preface to authenticity, as if being real required permission. And slowly, the act of shrinking became second nature. Yet even under layers of pretense, the real self refused to die completely. It flickered in small moments. The rare conversation where honesty slipped out, the secret journal filled with unspoken thoughts, the quiet joy found in doing something not approved by anyone else. These moments were fleeting, but they felt alive. And each one carried a message: you don't have to apologize. You don't have to hide. Still, fear had a strong grip. It whispered that authenticity would mean loneliness, that people would leave if the truth was shown. And perhaps, in some cases, they would. But the heavier fear was this: what if I never live as myself at all? What if I grow old and realize I was only ever an actor in someone else's play? The turning point began subtly, as most life changes do, not with a dramatic event, but with small cracks forming in the mask. A moment of exhaustion where pretending felt unbearable. A conversation that revealed how many others were also silently suffocating. A question from within: if everyone is faking, who will dare to be real? The hidden character started noticing the lies woven into daily life. Smiles that didn't reach the eyes. Compliments that sounded mechanical. Success stories told with pride but dripping with emptiness. And for the first time, there was a refusal to accept it blindly. The question wasn't about rebellion for the sake of rebellion, it was about survival. To keep living behind a mask felt like death in slow motion. And so the story of growth truly began. Not the growth measured by grades, promotions, or applause, but the deeper kind, the painful stretching of the soul into its rightful shape. It started with one small decision: to speak honestly, without apology. The first time felt terrifying. Words stumbled out, voice trembling, eyes searching for disapproval. But something miraculous happened. Though not everyone agreed, the sky didn't fall. The world didn't collapse. And in that fragile moment of truth, there was freedom. But freedom is not a straight path. It came with backlash too. Some people pulled away, unsettled by the rawness of authenticity. Others mocked or dismissed it. And yes, rejection hurt. But the pain of rejection was lighter than the suffocation of pretending. The hidden character realized something powerful: those who demand the mask never loved the real person anyway. Life began to unfold differently. The journey was not about becoming someone new, but about returning to the person who had always been there, buried under apologies. Each step forward meant peeling back another layer of fear, another expectation that didn't belong. It was messy, inconsistent, and often lonely, but it was real. Part 1 closes at this crossroad, the place where the character, still unnamed and hidden, begins to stand taller in their own truth. The journey ahead would test them further. It would demand courage, sacrifice, and the willingness to lose comfort in order to gain freedom. But deep inside, the shift had begun. And once authenticity is tasted, it cannot be forgotten. Because the heart knows, life is too short to apologize for being real. Change is not a single decision, it is 1,000 little choices repeated every day. After that first fragile moment of honesty, something inside shifted. It was as if a window had been opened in a room that had been locked for years. Fresh air poured in, uncomfortable at first, but necessary. The hidden character knew there was no going back to the suffocating safety of masks. And yet, the path forward was anything but simple. At first, authenticity felt like standing bare under a harsh light. Every time truth was spoken, anxiety surged. Would they laugh? Would they reject? Would they walk away? Sometimes, they did. There were days when friendships dissolved, when conversations ended in silence, when others whispered behind closed doors. But the difference now was this. The hidden character no longer bent backward just to be accepted. The price of approval had been revealed, it cost the soul itself. And that was too high a price to keep paying. The journey through adulthood became less about fitting in and more about standing firm. Workplaces, social circles, even family gatherings became arenas where the decision had to be made again and again, to conform, or to be real. Often, being real meant clashing with the unspoken rules that everyone else seemed comfortable following. But slowly, a pattern emerged: those who valued truth stayed, those who didn't drifted away. And in the empty spaces left behind, room was created for new connections, genuine ones. It was surprising to discover how authenticity drew others closer too. Some people, weary of their own masks, found courage in seeing someone else stand bare. They leaned in, tentatively at first, then with relief, as if whispering, finally, someone who isn't pretending. Conversations deepened. Superficial exchanges gave way to raw honesty, about struggles, fears, dreams long buried. The hidden character realized that authenticity wasn't just personal liberation, it was permission for others to be real too. But growth is never a straight climb. There were setbacks, moments of weakness where old habits crept back in. In stressful situations, the instinct to apologize for being different returned. Sorry for saying that, sorry if I made it awkward. It was a reflex built over years of conditioning. Yet now, there was awareness. Each unnecessary apology was caught, examined, and gradually unlearned. Instead of saying, sorry, the hidden character learned to say, thank you for listening, or simply nothing at all. With time, life began to look different. Choices were no longer dictated by fear of judgment. Careers shifted, not necessarily toward what others admired, but toward what brought meaning. Relationships were pruned, not based on appearances, but on authenticity. Hobbies resurfaced, passions once abandoned returned, as if waiting patiently for the day they could breathe again. The hidden character wasn't becoming someone new, but reclaiming the person who had always been there, beneath the layers of apology. And yet, the world outside didn't always celebrate this transformation. Society still preferred polished masks. Colleagues called honesty too blunt. Relatives labeled nonconformity selfish. Even friends sometimes felt threatened by someone who no longer played by the old rules. But the hidden character had learned that rejection is not the end of the world. It is simply redirection. Each door that closed cleared the path for something truer to open. There came a day when the hidden character stood in front of a mirror, not to check appearances, but to see, really see. The reflection was not flawless, not perfect, but finally familiar. For years, the eyes had carried shadows of pretense, now, they carried fire. There was still fear, still doubt, but beneath it all was something stronger, peace. The kind of peace that comes only when you stop running from yourself. From that point on, growth was no longer just about surviving. It became about creating, giving, and daring to live fully. The hidden character began to write, to share, to speak, not to please, but to express. And the strange thing was, the more real the expression, the more it resonated with others. People connected not to perfection, but to vulnerability. The cracks became bridges. Life's challenges did not vanish, in fact, authenticity sometimes made them sharper. Being real meant refusing shortcuts, refusing to silence injustice, refusing to follow blindly. It meant carrying responsibility for choices without hiding behind excuses. It meant facing criticism head-on. But with each challenge, the hidden character grew sturdier, more rooted, less shaken by the storms around them. In time, the apology for being real faded completely. Instead of shrinking, the hidden character began to stand unapologetically tall. Not arrogant, not defiant, but free. When someone disagreed, it was accepted. When someone walked away, it was allowed. When someone stayed, it was cherished. Life no longer revolved around pleasing everyone, it revolved around being true. And in that truth, there was beauty. Authenticity brought pain, yes, but it also brought joy, the kind of joy that comes from living without chains. The laughter was louder, the tears more cleansing, the love deeper, because none of it was filtered. Even solitude transformed. Being alone was no longer emptiness, it was wholeness. The story closes not with an ending, but with a beginning. Because authenticity is not a destination, it is a lifelong journey of choosing, again and again, to show up as you are. The hidden character walks forward not as a flawless hero, but as a real human being, carrying scars and stories, mistakes and triumphs. And in that walk is a quiet message for anyone who dares to listen. Stop apologizing for being real. The world doesn't need more masks. It needs more truth. And that truth begins with you.